I just want to ask one question each to both of you. Reverend Chingmak, when we talk about cultural values, I mean, we often hear this idea of, oh, culturally we're very truth and honest and upright. And in that sense, uh, maybe the leaning towards the statement that our culture is democratic comes from that there is equality. So do you think that perhaps the cultural structures are there, but the cultural values of, say, truth and being upright and honest is missing, and perhaps that is why it is, you know, that cultural infrastructure and that institution is no longer what it used to be. So do you think, that perhaps there is a link between that it's not necessarily, I mean, not exactly not necessarily, but the problem is not really in the structure itself, because if you look at hierarchy, which seems to be a problem in that cultural context, but even in democracy there is that hierarchy, there is that thing. So do you think it is perhaps the absence of things like truth and honest? And in fact, before that also, is the statement that we're culturally truth and upright and honest, are we missing something there? Is that a true statement?
Uh, there's absolutely the Naga culture, all of us agree, it's definitely egalitarian. There's absolutely no question about it. It's egalitarian in the sense that it has signs of democratic values. But in the Naga society, generally Nagas are very honest. And even now, I have seen generally honest. And so in my experience going to the villages, when I'm very honest with the villagers, they're also very honest. And many of our programs, we involve them in the planning. We involve them in the designing. And so there's that sense of ownership. And so most of the programs, I feel many of the programs we do are successful because they are part of the decision making. So there's the sense of ownership in the proposal itself, from bottom up itself, there is that process. But because the way it is designed, if you're not given that space, then you have very little space when it especially comes to governance, that space is not given. So it tends to be very secluded within people who are in the governance structures, who don't really give space for people to speak up. So I think these are two different things which we see when it comes to governance. But generally, we Nagas, as we say, we tend to be upfront, we tend to be honest. Of course, we cannot generalize, things are changing, but then that tends to be it. But I think the problem comes when it comes to decision making, because of the way it is structured. For example, women are not even allowed to come into the Morung in Eastern Nagaland. Now, if women are not even allowed to come into the Morung, where is that space for her to express herself or to speak about what the women issues are? Because in our village plannings, men normally come with things like, we want retaining wall, we want footsteps, we want latrine. And women come and say, we want the school to be better. We want money for our children. So a whole 50% of that majority who's talking about the well-being of the village in terms of human resource development is not part of the planning process. And we leave out a whole chunk who are coming up with this idea of mental health, who are coming and saying, these are the issues. And men are coming, they're saying, we want retaining wall. And they build retaining walls. And they show the same retaining wall 3 times.
Okay, and Professor Lanu, I want to ask, as you were presenting, I was just thinking if there has been any improvement, if you can cite any incidents or situations where you've seen an improvement when it comes to transparency, or an improvement in governance because of certain implementation of transparent tools and things like that. And if you can, give some recommendations which we can, as citizens, which we can think about, and not just as citizens, as leaders and people in the public space that we can think about, talk about, how to take things forward.
I may be rather very pessimistic, but I also feel that I'm a realist. I want to say good things, but when good things are not happening, I cannot get the word to say good things. See, Nagaland, a lot of changes are taking place. There is no denial for that. A lot of developments are also taking place. But when it comes to transparency, the things are not the way we desire. And I think we still have a long way to go. In situation have been aggravated by things like the recent happening where in democracy do you find oppositionless government? It'll be a history in making in a small state like Nagaland. And the reason for oppositionless government is not for good things, to be crudely honest. It is just for one reason: everybody wants a share. Everybody wants to be in the ruling party. I do not see any other things. And yes, things are coming to light. For example, I have cited about the highway between Kohima and Dimapur, super highway, the the one and the only High Court building. Things are not things are picking up. They are now being repaired. It's on the way. But how is the process that they are compelled to take it up? Is that because media have flashed out in the paper, and it was taken up so modo by the High Court. So it was under the compelling situation that government is compelled to get into the action, right? Not because of the realization or not because of the mass realization. I think the mass realization is still very long way to go. We have to encourage each other. We have to encourage like our Senden or tribal bodies. They have to encourage the students. Students have to encourage other civil societies. It should not be taken as instigation, but we need to share information. We need to encourage each other so that we all together grow. I think to me, what is very important, I'm just citing some example from Arunachal. The recent one is in Mizoram, where they are able to chase away Assam rifle from the public space. It's all because of the effectiveness of the media, effectiveness of the electronic medias. People are using for positive development, sharing information, educating each other, and then having the common platform. I think I see one very important thing is that we must use the tools very positively and very effectively. But as of now, I have not seen many positive things, excepting some circle of discussion youngsters. But the problem with our people is consistency is one where we fail. There is a lot of debate. I see a lot of initiative. But one thing we must encourage, we must push the issue of consistency. So, yeah.
Okay, good morning, everyone. It's an honor to listen to our most respectful person, I'm privileged to be here. I've come from Nagaland University, Lumami. My name is Tiso, and I'm a research scholar from Law Department, and I'm presently residing at Lumami. Um, Today we have gained a lot from the very topic transparency in Nagaland, where I have a pointer to a question towards Lanu. Um, as we are all Indian citizens, and it is provided in our constitution that we have a fundamental right. In Article 21, we are right to life, and Article 19(1)(a), where we have freedom of speech and expression, where it also has provided right to information Act 2005. So I would like to know your opinion on how far this right to information act can help our Naga society, especially the students body and CSO, in providing Nagaland more transparency and more accountability.
I think some very positive thing is that center has given certain tools for all the citizens to use effectively, or rather to help government function with transparency and accountability. For that, yes, as you said, uh, right RTI, and then other tools are there. So I think it is very important that we should RTI and e-governance. Those are all very important tools that we should use. But before going into the usage, it is very important that each and every citizen must know the contents, the meaning of those tools. I think what I see is that even in Naga society, though we keep talking about RTI, we are very skeptical to go for RTI because we have too much of face value among our people. But we should know that all those tools are to use not to malign some other personality or not to tarnish the image of certain people, but those tools are to be used for the good of the citizens. So I think it is very important to first educate our general mass, and then we must use them in the proper sense. For example, in Nagaland, we do have RDI activists, but we are also realizing that there are certain educated RDI activists, instead of doing for the good of the society, they are becoming a problematic to do the whole issue because they will go to the office, they will dig out all the information, and then they will make conditions for the officers. You give me this, or I'm going to reveal everything. I'll put you in trouble. So recently, I was also talking to a friend of mine from Kohima, and he said now office are keeping some money to deal with RDI activists. Initially, it used to be with Naga national workers. Now RTI activists are there. So the office is keeping some amount to deal with those people. So it is so unfortunate that before the society come to realize or come to use that for the good of the society, we seems to be starting a lot of negative things. We are unable to use those tools. So I think it is very important to educate in all levels.
Very good learning experience for Sir Chingmak. Let me introduce myself first. I'm Eleutheros. I work as principal in government ITI. Today, we are representing Mokokchung, our office as the Longkumer. Uh, for non-profitable organizations like churches, we are exempted from paying taxes. So at least for past 1 2 years, I'm just wondering myself, and I'm not very sure. So I'm thinking many town churches, even within Nagaland,
now functions as profitable organizations. Non-profitable organizations are exempted from bank taxes. But churches, since we have so many returns, now we function as profitable organizations. So, for accountability's sake, revenue generated by the church, if it is under the purview of tax payment, should we also start paying tax church as an institution?
I think, as far as I know, I think all religious organizations are exempt from taxation, whether it's the temple or the church or gurdwara or the masjid. So I think I will not be in a position to say that. But as far as NGOs are concerned, they are not for profit, so they should not be making profit.
Non-profitable organizations are exempted.
Yeah, exempted.
Yes, but suppose corporate sectors, church, they do business or gurdwaras. If we do take business, the income generated from that source.
Yeah. Should that be taxed or not?
Should that be taxed or for accountability? If we work as NGOs, non-profitable thing, it is not to be taxed. But once we start earning revenues, yes.
Yeah.
I'm just asking opinion only.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. See, what I feel is even for Nagas, as long as we Nagas don't pay tax, then there will not be accountability. And I think that is one of the problems we are facing too. We cannot hold the government accountable because he's saying, I got it from Delhi, so I'll do whatever I want. And to get this money, I have paid money. But then if it was taxpayers' money, then I think there would be greater accountability. So from that point of view, I think non-profit organizations also, for NGOs, we are supposed to pay, in the first place, we are not supposed to make profit. That's very clear. And so, for the church also, I think the issue of making profit doesn't arise. But whatever is being generated, if it goes back to the school program or to the hospital program, or, then they're exempt. So I think it's a very thin line that we have to draw. For the church, I think this is like the NLPT Act. It's a very dicey situation, of how you look at it on the taxation issue, because so far there has not been any norm set for the church, or for that matter, for the temple or for the Gurdwara. So I really can't, I haven't really thought through on that issue of those churches who are making profit. But as far as I know, within the church in Nagaland, whatever profit they're making is going back into the activity of the church. Like, it's not going to individuals, or it's primarily going back into social programs, it's going back to the church or for church activities, as far as I know.
Thank you to two of our sir for enlightening in such a pertinent issue in Nagaland. It was such an insightful and learning time which I will never regret. To Reverend Chingmak, firstly, I am Sashikumla Longkumer from Clark Theological College, an MTH second year student under Christian Ministry Counseling. I have a concern. I heard you sharing about sensitization program for the rural public leaders, starting from the Yimton councils and all. Therefore, considering the fact that this station is comprised of people from different fields, I just want to ask, what were some of the major gay strategies that you have or your association have used towards sensitization of the people, and especially these Putumetan councils and all, and how would you challenge the rest of the Naga community towards a new change? And secondly, to Sir Professor Lanu, I just want to ask something. When we talk about transparency, we are all aware, and it is the responsibility of every citizens and every civil organizations and institutions. And all this comes, when we talk about this Nagas, especially our tribal areas, all this comes under a governing body, which in rural areas we term as Yamtan, a council. And everything, the moderation of all expressions comes under this. And when I see this, I want to share an instance. This is government, maybe not all department, but government, whenever they give schemes and all, after the completion of the requirement, when they are to give they are to submit, they ask this church witness. We are leading by the pastors, they have to witness that it has been done rightly. And in some instances, I remember being in a church ministry for a few years, we willingly and boldly declined to give the witness. And there was this instance, I'm not mentioning the place or any specific, but the full-time workers were invited by those officials for the witness in order to get the accurate data. And it was me, I was so reluctant to attend that program. However, by the chair, I went there, attended, and then my turn came to witness. And I was so reluctant that I declined, where I was asked by the higher authority to stay away from this session because my business there would spoil their calculation. So in such a context like this, like today, how would you vision the church stance and the church contribution towards transparency and Nagaland?
See, one of the things that we have been doing as an organization is we look at the primary stakeholders within the community, because in our Naga society, the stakeholders are the decision-making bodies. So when we go to a village, it's the village council. And we feel that if we sensitize the village council, because the way we look at our society and the understanding of democratic values are very different. Because when it comes to democratic values, it's about rights. It's about freedom for expression. It's rights for every individual in the village to have a right to say and being given that space to speak. And the right for that information to go out, for people to know the information. So these are the things. So we target the village council and we sensitize them on getting them to understand what is democracy all about. What is the rights of all citizens? These are the things that we try and conscientize them. Because in the village council, it is the Gaunbara or it is the VDP secretary who has the final say. So this is where we work with the village council. We take them for exposure. We sort of sensitize them. Even recently, we brought them to Mangmutong village, right? To Kansa village, to few villages to interact with village councils. How are they planning? So the idea is to really engage them. And then we also gradually tell them, once they open up, we say, are you willing to have a board and you put up what is the amount that you have received? Because you're supposed to do this. Social auditings are done this way. Community has to do social auditing. So these are small baby steps that we're taking so that gradually the idea that everyone has a right to know. Everyone has equal rights to have access to those information. Those are the things that we try to do. So then we have the village health committee members. So in the village health committee members, we say, can we have mothers who are part of the village health committee? Because much of the health problems are relating to women. can we have mothers who are in the village health committee? And when they open up, then we gradually say, can we have women as co-chair in the village health committee? So now they begin to give that space and they begin to understand what is democratic value is all about. Otherwise, the way we're driven by patriarchy. And it's very imperialistic. So patriarchy has no space even for people who are younger. It's only when they become older then they have a say. So patriarchy is not just about someone who is at the top. It's equally affecting those who are below, whether it's women or men or things like that. So that's one of the areas that we work on at all levels. So we engage with the church and gradually. See, one of the things why usually the church building is the best building is because, okay, the church has problems, but to some extent there's some level of trust because they're open about how much money is coming, how much money is going. So on every mountaintop you see the church building, whereas the school is a shack. The primary health center is run down, but you find that the church building is the best building. It's because there is certain amount of transparency there and people are willing to give money because they know that it is going to save hands. So generally Nagas are very simple. If we honestly speak to them, if we say, hey, Taibra dostaga dishide, Taibra bistaga dishide, our Nagas are very simple. If you're honest, they're willing to work with you and they engage with you. So to change Nagaland is not very difficult. We can transform Nagaland. See, Nagaland is 2 million. Bangalore city is 12 million. I mean, it's not difficult to develop, but as Sir was mentioning, we are the low, all indicators show that we're the lowest performing state. Whether it's in terms of hospital deliveries, whether in terms of immunization, whether it's in terms of employment. So that only goes to show that democracy is not working. The best sign that democracy is not working is corruption. That's an indicator that democracy is not working. So my contention is, why don't we make democracy work? Why don't we sensitize people so that at all levels people understand what democracy is and participate in that process, and starting from the village council. So I think that's the way to work out.
Yeah, just what I think about your question is church. I don't know the working system in the villages, that detail, but when central project comes, I don't know whether church is included in all the process. But if at all, church has to be there in certain, or as a witness, or as a or to do some participatory role, I think it is an opportunity for the church to do some corrective measures if village council or some committees are not doing right. What our Reverend Chingmak has said, we show same wall 2-3 times. That is an open secret, right? Almost all the churches all the villages are doing that. That is why our development is getting stagnant. No fresh development, no quality development is taking place. So if church is invited, I think church should go. Church should say the right things. If we want change, I think we should be ready and we should be willing to do something uncomfortable, no matter how painful it's going to be. Right should be laid out by the church. If church cannot do that, do its own village, do its own citizens, what is church all about? I think church should start doing the right thing within their own community, because church is the moral authority. So church can also correct the village council or any committee within its domain. So I feel that they should take part in it.
Since I'm from the church, I think the major problem is also the church. Because the church has not become a platform for social justice. And I think, because who has a platform like the church? Not even Rio. Every Sunday morning, the whole village is in front of the pastor for 1 hour. And this is such a huge opportunity for the pastor to be able to talk about justice. Now, if one pastor just says, if you're not going teaching, if you are having proxy teacher, if you're not sincere, the church would not like to accept your tithe. That in itself is going to give a huge message. And that's the only way out. Unfortunately, the church has not been able to play the role of, bringing about social justice. And I think this is where the church leadership, with you young people, with the new generation, if this kind of a trend comes in, there will be opposition. Because there is a hierarchy. The village council will shun you. You'll be kicked out of the church. But I think some pastors has to be kicked out. And gradually then change might, eventually happen. My father was, I was a pastor in a small village. And my father stood for election 7 times. And in the first time when he stood for the election, I was a pastor. And then the student body, everyone came to me and they said, Amigan Busidi Kup Kuribo. Because he's from a village, so the whole village will do. I said, if you're going to Kup, then I'm not going to be the pastor here. Let me resign first, then you do it. Somewhere down the line, we have to do that. Unfortunately, such a thing does not happen. We have to stand against the clan. We have to say white is white, black is black. And the village council should also be sensitized enough to say, oh, he is right. And so I think we have to address the elephant in the room. And that is where I'm trying to bring you back again and again towards this whole understanding of cultural mores and cultural ethos and cultural against the ethical background of what democracy all stands for.
Moderator, sir, for giving me this time. I would like to also appreciate our resource person, Reverend Dr. Chingmak, and also Professor Lanu for this wonderful presentation that you have given us. I think all of us have been enlightened. I would introduce myself. My name is Longkumer. I am from Clark Theological College and studying Master of Theology in the Department of Communication. I would like to ask a question to Professor Lanu. I'm very happy that you have brought about one of my scholar, Irakan Habermas, public sphere. He talks about sphere where each and every one of us, the public, can come together and have discourse, have dialogue. And in the course of your presentation, I think you touched upon how social media can be a place where we can, ask for or maybe question the government. I believe this change would start from the grassroots. I think this has to start from the grassroots. And I would like to bring an incident. A few years ago, there was a scheme from the government for the public, where the public were given a grant on monthly basis for people who were not employed. Now, with that being said, I think this fund were being taken by the village council, and there was a person. He posted something. Since social media is a place where we can question the government or maybe the village council, that question arises of where is our fund? What is happening to our fund that is being provided? And as that happened, I think that man or the woman, I would prefer not to say the gender. That person was fined by the village council for questioning them, for questioning the council. And I think that is happening in almost all the villages. I think when people are questioning the council, I think the higher authority, they are, in one or the other way, they are, keeping the mouth shut of the people. So, given that, I think I would like to ask this question of how effective can this social media be? Yes, we have seen places where, or incidents where this have impacted somehow. But in the grassroots level, how can this be utilized? Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think I would like to also bring in what our Reverend was saying, slur in the Naga democracy. We think we are so proud to say Nagas have a pure democracy, but there are a lot of problems in our democracy, in the understanding of the democracy. Certainly, as Reverend have said, there are many democratic values in the understanding of our democracy, but the problem with us in the story that you are saying is that we have too much of communitarian authority in the individual rights in liberty is many a times it is completely marginalized in the understanding of our democracy. Just the way we completely ignore the other gender, women are excluded from democratic processes. So I think when within the village, an individual cannot question the village authority, right? That is wrong in democracy. Democracy, if we go by definition, is by the people, for the people, in, I don't know, I'm forgetting the phrase, but it gives all the scope for individual as well as collective rights in liberty. But in our understanding, very sadly, we do not give that individual liberty or that rights. Many a time it has been suppressed by the community or the collective authority. So I think, yes, definitely there are instances, but what is good about this media, electronic media, is that we should not be discouraged by one instance. We should keep using it. And I would also like to, while agreeing with you that change should start from grassroots, but why not we also think about change should start from small things. Many a times we ignore small things. We target only at big things. So it may be in the grassroots or it may be on top. Change should be, the change, when we see that it needs to change, it can be a small thing or big things. Let us not ignore the small things. And I think, to me, what is important is that even in the grassroots, even in the village, we cannot live now without communications, right? So this media and communication will always be part and parcel of our future. Therefore, one instance should not discourage us. We should keep using it. The only thing is we should be well informed. We should also know when to use, how to use. So therefore, it is very important to educate ourselves first before using it.